Hi, she's Phyllis.
And he's Mario. Welcome to LaTabella.
The table, our family table. The star of today's menu is steak pizziaola.
It's a Neapolitan term and it means meat in the style of a pizza maker.
It's steak that's seared over a high heat to seal in the juices, and then it's we finish cooking it in a braising sauce of almost anything you want, but it almost always has tomatoes. We're cooking ours with fresh plum tomatoes that have been roasted, and we're making a sauce out of that, and some red peppers, roasted red peppers. It's going to be delicious. You're going to love it. In addition to that, Phyllis wanted me to make more homemade pasta.
I did.
But I won the coin toss, and we're making a roasted red potato, and Phyllis is going to do that for us. A salad with a warm mushroom dressing, portobello mushroom dressing, out of this world, delicious stuff. And we're even going to toss in a dessert that we're making. We don't normally make desserts, we tend to buy them, but today we're going to make a peach tart. I'm going to show you how to make a pastry cream to fill that tart, and for many years it intimidated me until I learned to just relax. Just a few simple rules and it comes out good. With that, let's get cooking. Phyllis is going to start with her roasted potatoes. But first, sip of wine and a kiss.
Okay, I'm going to do some herbs roasted potatoes, and the herbs that I selected are really from my garden, and I like them fresh, but sometimes after a few days, if they're sitting in a cut in a glass of water, they tend to start wilting and not looking too good. So I take them out, I dry them on a paper towel for a few days, and then they just can keep forever. So I kind of reconstituted them with a little bit of olive oil, some salt, a little pepper, and that's what I'm going to brush on the roasted potatoes before I put them in the oven. And the potatoes I selected are a red bliss potato, kind of a medium size. You can cut them in half or quarters. I'm going to cut them in quarters, and then I'm going to throw them in a pan and brush them with a little bit of my mixture of herbs. These I've already done, and I'm just going to incorporate the rest of them into the pan. They're going to go into a roasting pan. I'll probably roast them on 375, and you can adjust it up or down depending on your oven, for about an hour. When you start to see them getting a little bit crunchy or brown around the edges, and you test them with the fork, I think it's probably time to take them out. So I'll get these going before Mario starts on his pizziaola. So there we go. So let me get those popped into the oven, and then we'll let Mario work on his meat dish.
Now I'm going to make or prepare the tomatoes for the pizziaola sauce, and I bought some plum tomatoes, and I was a little disappointed. They weren't quite as ripe as I liked them, so we're gonna have to work a bit on this to get it right. Take out the core, slice it in half lengthwise. Plum tomatoes are pretty good because they don't have a lot of seeds, so it's not really necessary. But since we're feeding the crew, and I love the crew, I'm going to take that extra step and take out the seeds. Tomatoes. You can see that they're not overly ripe and overly red, so that's going to have a little impact on the flavor. So what do we put in that now? We're going to put in all the magic ingredients that make it, that give it its pizziaola flavor. Extra virgin olive oil with some crushed garlic. As in previous episodes, I crushed the garlic ahead of time, put it in extra virgin olive oil to keep it fresh, while we're filming, just to save time. You could do that at home or not. And continuing with the herb from Phyllis's garden theme, carrying over the same flavors from the potato dish to the Pizziaola dish, we're using her homegrown oregano. Thought I forgot, right? Crushed red pepper flakes. Optional. Depends on how much heat you like on your sauce. We're going to put just a few. These are dried. Buy them in any supermarket or discount place. Here I have some kosher salt and black pepper. I just mixed them, freshly ground. I just mixed them together ahead of time just to save a step. And we're going to sprinkle that on. We're going to add a little bit more extra virgin olive oil. And last but not least, this is also optional. I put just a little bit of sugar on it. Kind of helps it to brown in the oven when I broil it. And where these tomatoes were not super ripe, they may benefit from a little bit of sugar to sweeten it up. And oops, I was kind of heavy-handed. So I'm going to pop these in the oven with Phyllis's potatoes. Now it's time to sear the meat, and I'm going to do it in a skillet on my new best toy, the induction portable cooktop. Heats things up fast, and it's portable, keeps me up close to the camera. What kind of meat to use? It's up to you. It's one of those dishes that it's your choice. This happens to be a top of the round, if I remember correctly. I looked at a lot of different cuts of meat before I picked this up. You have two choices for cooking this. You can do low, slow braise in the tomato sauce after you sear it in the skillet. For a tougher, less tender piece of steak, that might be the best way to do it. That long, slow braising helps to tenderize it. Or if you have a piece of meat that is from a tender muscle of the animal, then you could do a kind of a fast braise, and just that way you can keep it, try to keep it at a medium rare. So we're going to make some beeps here while we turn this guy on, and we're going to put some extra virgin olive oil in the pan. There's already some in there because we cooked a little bit earlier. Going to season the steak just with a little bit of salt and pepper. Not too much. If you put too much, beforehand, pardon my fingers, tends to draw the moisture out. Probably should have let that warm up a little faster, or I mean a little longer. We'll salt this side. And we're going to let that sear over a nice high temperature. Searing helps to seal in the juices, gives it that nice brown crust on the outside of the steak that has a lot of flavor. How do you like your steak? Do you like it medium rare? Do you like it well done? I like mine medium rare. I think I'm going to have to talk a little louder to get above the sizzle. We're not going to cook this too long. We don't want to cook it fully here. Let's start to taper that down. And you saw the tomatoes that I prepared earlier. This is what I've done with them. I've mashed them up with a potato masher. I took the time to take the peels off. Normally I don't. I would just take my stick blender or food processor and whiz it all up and keep the peels in there. And I've added some roasted red peppers to it, as I mentioned earlier. So this is going to go in. We may get some sizzle and noise coming from this as that hits the pan. Distribute that Pizziaola sauce around. Gonna lower the heat a bit more. Now, you really have to smell this. Here, get close and smell that. That's just, can you smell it? That's awesome. That's good stuff. We're going to take this off the cooktop here, the burner. We're going to put this in the oven. We're going to take a short break while we set up for the next dish, and we'll be back soon.
Hi. I'm going to prepare the warm dressing for the salad. Portobello mushrooms, and I'm using a Vidalia sweet onion. And I'm going to saute them in my new toy, which I've had a little bit of practice, so hopefully I'll do a good job today and not burn anything. I'm going to start off with a little bit of olive oil in the pan. Maybe 2 tablespoons. You can add more if you think it needs it. Let that sit for a second and warm up. And I'm going to start slicing the portobello. I like to do them, there's 2 ways you can do them. You can do them this way and slice them, or you can turn them around. I like to do it like a handle. So I just grab the center and I slice down a couple of times until I end up with the stem exposed. I'm going to cut these about maybe a ½ inch or so in thickness. You could cut them thinner, but I like the real taste of the mushrooms. And by the time you put them in the pan and they sweat down, they're going to be smaller than when you started. So throw these little guys in there and get that started. Same thing with this one. Oh, big guys, yeah. Now, what you'll notice, I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper here to it, just a little bit. What you're going to notice is all of a sudden, where did the oil go? It just gets sucked up so quickly by the mushrooms. And you think you want to add more, but hold back just a bit. Because when you flip these and with the salt and they start sweating, all of a sudden they're going to release all their juices and some of that oil you put in. So really starting with the 2 tablespoons of olive oil is plenty for this amount of mushrooms. And I'm just going to slice up the onion. Now this I will cut a little thin. So I'll just cut these a little bit more before I put them in the pan. And throw in the onions. We'll let this saute just a little bit. I might add just a pinch more salt, a little more. And the idea is this is going to be a warm dressing. So when this is all done, I'm going to set it aside because I'm doing it ahead of time. And then what I'll do is I'll just warm it up a bit and maybe make some corrections to the dressing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Just before I dress the salad. Hot. I like to take it off the heat and let it cool down a bit before I add it to the lettuce. Because I like it warm, but I don't like it hot.
This is the whole point.
No.
It's a warm mushroom dressing for the
warm,
salad.
Not hot. That's the whole idea. So the onions and the mushrooms have come along very nicely. And I did up a little batch a little earlier this afternoon, and I'm going to incorporate this batch into what I'm doing in the frying pan. And all this can be done ahead of time before you dress the salad for your guests. You can get all of this done so you can concentrate on other things like looking beautiful, having a glass of wine, and all that kind of stuff. The magic ingredient, I'm going to lower this just a tad. We had a big debate this afternoon, Mario and I. I love vinegar, and I like to use, excuse me, a white balsamic vinegar. And Mario likes to use an Asian rice
vinegar
Yep.
because it's not quite as strong as the balsamic and won't overpower the mushrooms.
Right. So I'm gonna.
So I knew I was going to lose. Okay, you probably noticed I lose them all, but lo and behold, Phyllis surprised me.
I did, because I said, you know what, you're right. So we compromised on this, and I'm going to use a smaller portion, maybe a third of the amount, which would maybe be a tablespoon of the white balsamic, which I will put in. And then I'm going to let him put in 2/3 of a
Say when.
portion, which would be maybe, yeah, that's good, thank you. Maybe 2 tablespoons. So 2 tablespoons of the Asian vinegar and maybe a tablespoon of the white balsamic. And then I'll probably now add just a little more olive oil, and then I'm going to turn this off and set it aside for later when we're ready to toss the salad.
I'm going to start on the dessert. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a tart. It's an Italian-style tart, but it's done a la Mario. I'm looking for the easy way out. I'm looking to simplify it. Okay, we're back and we're ready to try our pastry cream. We're going to start by heating up some milk. Any milk. I've made it with skimmed milk. I've made it with whole milk. Any milk will do. And we're going to let that heat up. I add sugar.
What do you got there, about a tablespoon?
That was a heaping tablespoon. But I'm not done. I got to taste it. I keep adding sugar until it tastes sweet enough to me. I'm going to add another. Keeping in mind that there are other ingredients that are going to go in here and kind of dilute it a bit. But my guess is 2 heaping tablespoons for 1 cup of milk will probably do it kind of nicely. Pinch of salt. What's a pinch? That's a pinch. Why salt? Salt helps to enhance the flavors. It brings out the sweetness, and it's other than its bad effect on your blood pressure. Who believes that? It's a pretty good product. 3 tablespoons of flour to 1 cup of milk. I'm going to use, I don't want to give them the name, but it's one of those really fine flours that probably someone like Wonder Woman may have used when she baked. I don't know. But we're gonna add it a little at a time here while we whisk. So, whoops, sorry, forgot that. We do have some lumps in the bottom, but I'm not worried about those just yet. There's always a way to correct that. What would Nona have done? She would have eaten the lumps and loved them, right? That's okay. We're gonna take it as it comes. Books tell you to let it kind of. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit more. Let it cook for 3 to 5 minutes, something like that, until it reaches an appropriate thickness. That looks okay to me. I'm going to take it off the heat now. You're going to hear some beeping. I apologize for that. Let it cool just a bit. And I'm only doing this so that the French chefs who are watching, I'm sure they're watching my show. All right, that's probably cooled enough. Some people might say, add a little bit of this to the egg to temper the egg. My egg doesn't have a temper. My egg is very cool. These are thickening up nicely. I am taking my time with it. I'm going to put that back on the heat. In order for this to work and to thicken properly, the flour has to come to a boil. That's really like the only rule in this thing. Other than that, you can do almost anything to it. But the mixture with the flour and it does have to come to a boil. That helps to cause the flour to do its thing as a thickening agent. White peaches. Got them at one of our local farm stores.
Oh, yeah, they're the best.
I'm going to shut
And,
that off because this looks about as good as it can get. So, the white peaches. Phyllis and I had this opportunity to go to Italy when we were a lot younger, probably about 1970 or so. And I met relatives who I had never met, never corresponded with. Including my mother's parents, my grandparents. It was quite a treat, but they lived in Naples, and while we were there, one day, two of my cousins took us into downtown Naples to one of those famous Neapolitan pizza joints. It really wasn't a joint. Well, maybe it really was. But we had, I don't know how to explain it, the most delicious pizza I ever had. And it was just a smear of tomato on it. Not like we get here in the States, where they load it up with tomato and cheese. Just a smear and just a couple of little pieces of mozzarella melted on top and some herbs. But the flavor was incredible. And they threw in, as a bonus, a big bowl filled with ice and extremely ripe white peaches. The kind of ripeness that, when you bite into it and the juice comes out, runs all the way down to your elbow. It's out of this world. I'm going to add, now that that's cooled off a bit, a little vanilla extract. What's a little? I don't know. Less. Less, I would say. A splash. All right, who's got clean fingers? We need someone to taste.
I'm going to put my finger in here, even though it's got white peach juice all over it. Woo.
What?
Delicious.
Sweet enough?
I think so.
All
Good
right.
for me.
It passed the Phyllis test of approval. Got to set this in the fridge, let it cool off. If it were too thick, I could add milk to it. I've added yogurt to it at this point. I've added sour cream. I've added mascarpone cheese. Any dairy product still thickens up and is delicious. Maybe it has a little extra tang, but it suits my taste just fine.
Earlier today, I took a pie crust. I bought it in the dairy section of the supermarket. It comes in a rolled tube in cellophane, and usually 2 in a box. And all you need to do is put it at room temperature. If you're making a big tart, you can put it flat on some flour and roll it out. I didn't need to do anything because this was a relatively small tart pan. So I just took the dough and I just pressed it in to the sides of the tart pan, and I pricked it with the fork, baked it at 350 or 375, whatever the directions are on the box, for maybe 15 minutes until it got golden brown. So we're ready to assemble our tart. And the first thing I like to do is take a little bit of a jam. I use an apricot jam or preserve. The preserve's got some chunks in it, which I like, so that's what I selected. And I take a little brush. And why I do this is it kind of helps to keep the pastry cream from making the bottom of the dough soggy, because a tart's supposed to be nice and crisp in the bottom. So I just give it a quick brush with a little bit of the jam, and then I will add the pastry cream. And while I'm doing that, Mario is slicing the white peaches that we got at one of our local farm stands. Absolutely delicious this time of the year. If you haven't had a white peach, you really need to try one. They're awesome. I'm going to take the pastry cream.
Sorry.
I'm going to pour it in to the shell. smooth it out just a tad so it's all even. This one had cooled down, so that's good. You want to add a cool pastry cream. Smooth it out just a little bit. Get it right to the edges, like so.
I took the pit out of the peach and I cut them in half in order to get at it. And then I cut slices from stem end to blossom end. And it's a little messy to work with. It's very juicy. Fan it out a little bit. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to you're going to be really disappointed when you hear this, but
You also don't have to go through all this trouble. He can't help himself. He's artistic. But you could just take the peach and just slice it and then just place them around in a circle until you get to the center.
I like to take my my butane torch or propane torch and kind of singe the edges of the peach and peaches so that between each slice it gets a nice little brown crispy edge. I love that. So we're going to go with the white on white peach on pastry cream. So.
Okay. Can I?
Okay.
Can I use some of this jam left over to
You
put on
can
the
use
top?
all of that. That's
This will
for
be
you.
so nice.
That's your jam.
If you have some left over, if not, just go back into the jam jar. But put some from the jam jar in a separate container so you're not contaminating the whole jar for another time. And you go in there and you see all these little creepy green things floating around in your jam. That would not be good.
Okay, I think we're just about ready to assemble the salad. Put that together. That's going to be a good salad. Bring everything out, and all of us can enjoy this meal. Hope you enjoy it too.
I'm just rewarming the mushroom and onions and the balsamic and the rice vinegar in the dressing. I might add a little bit more olive oil to it. Just a tad, maybe another tablespoon. And a little more of the rice vinegar so it'll toss nicely. That looks great. And I think we are good to go here. Just a little quick stir. Doesn't that look wonderful? The smells are so delicious, and I think it's going to even taste better than it looks. I'm going to give this a little toss. One thing I
That's
didn't
good.
do, and I've talked about it in other shows, is I could have just tossed the greens with a little bit of olive oil prior to putting the dressing in, just in case it was a little wet, so that it didn't wilt too much. It would hold the salad a little crisper, just a little longer. I would say that was about done. So there we are.
This is steak pizziaola in the style of the pizza maker, a Neapolitan dish. Phyllis's delightful, warm, delightful salad with a warm mushroom dressing, beautiful portobello mushrooms, roasted red potatoes, herbed with oregano from her garden, beautiful garden. And for dessert, we have a tart with peaches, white peaches, and my easy to make, never fails pastry cream. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We want to wish you buon appetito. Be sure to look for us on our Facebook page, LaTabella, with Phyllis and Mario. Oh, with Mario and Phyllis. I finally got first billing. Took me 47 years. I finally got it. Ciao.
Buon appetito.